we started the project schedule management. We talked about it that it is the duration on the calendar. Most of the processes are in the planning mode. Plan, define a sequence, estimate, and develop schedule. And then there is a process of controlling. All this activity, this is sequential. I mean, you will not jump to duration before defining the activities. And again, this is highly iterative. You keep on going as we talked about, where is it? Yes. Key concepts, yes. We talked about the law of diminishing returns. We talked about that how your final deliverable is started and you have completed to this level once you come back from the scoping. So this part of your structure was completed, and then now you need to actually start working on this level. You need to know that what exactly is required to deliver the smallest deliverable that you have worked. We talked about the critical path, that it is two scheduling method. One is critical path, another is agile. In agile, everything is based on your sprint size. So there is nothing as critical path because you have to deliver one item or one usable product at the end of every item. Critical path is important. These are the activities within a project that you cannot delay at any cost, because this is where you will delay the project. We talked about the progressive elaboration or rolling wave plan, where we will go into the granular level detail when it comes to the current activity. Then we talked about the near future details, which is about flexible enough because we are still waiting for some more information, and something which is far in future, more than 6 months, more than 9 months. We do not want to get involved into it right now, which does not at all mean that we do not have a control over it or we do not know what it requires to do the job, but it is just that we do not want to get into it that, okay, painting will take 2 days and electrical work will take 3 days. We don't want to get into it. Let us dig, let us get the infrastructure ready, let us get the structure ready, let us do the aluminum work, and then we will begin with the interior. These are some of the constraints that we have on Microsoft project, or when we are actually creating our schedule. I mean, there are some of it is just for your information. You would not find that in your examination, specifically this area. Now, the first and the foremost process, the plan schedule management. Again, planning is about us, planning is about our team, planning is about templates, planning is about agreement within a team member, that how we are going to behave, how we are going to deliver the job. So just before the cost of the project, this is the question that we have to answer, that how much time it is going to take. And this part of the project is directly linked with the benefit management plan, where we agree or where we commit that what benefits we will deliver at what time. The project schedule management processes and their associated tools and techniques are documented in the schedule management plan. There are many techniques. Which technique you are going to use, 50-50 rule you are going to use, 8 to 80 hours you are going to use, critical path method you will use. This is the template is defined in terms of getting the activities you will use. The attribute, remember the work breakdown structure dictionary that create a UAT plan. What does create UAT plan means? So you use a work breakdown structure dictionary to define what does UAT mean. Same here, we need an activity. Activity is paint the room. But what does paint the room means? What color, when it will start, when it will finish, what is the predecessor, what is the testing point, who is going to do it, when it is being done, how it is being handed over. All these attributes we need to identify. But what are the attributes? Do you want to leave these attributes on Mudassir, Kashif, Hasib, Roshan, Dushi? We all have different experiences. You ask me, I am one of those project managers who let the team decide way too many things. And I just keep monitoring, and then I just keep asking them to please tell me, do you need me? Do you need me? Do you need me? But I don't get into their daily operations. This is the, but again, maybe there is another person who is just who wants to be in control. So we all need, because it's a big project of the housing society where 500 villas will be constructed, we all will not be meeting a lot, or we have to do a lot of things. We will be only coming maybe twice a week or maybe thrice a week to share our experiences, but we should not be discussing things there which we can actually agree in the beginning. So the schedule management plan details what is the basis of monitor, when you are going to monitor, how the time access will be delayed, how we are going to reallocate to other tasks if something is delayed, provide the basis of the project progress. There are many factors which will impact the scheduling, like what is the project? Is it the first time that you are doing? Yeah, or you have done it before? It is an internal project. It is an external project. Is it a unique to you? Think of a construction company which has never done a high-rise building. They usually do 5 to 10 floors, and then now as a policy decision they want to start the high-rise building. It's a project they have never done before. So obviously they need more time to study the uniqueness, uncertainties, risk factor to define the project schedule. Organization culture and has a very big effect on the project schedule. What kind of organization you are in, it has a direct impact on your resource availability. You should be looking from commercial databases. The areas also should deal with the external client and internal clients, how you are going to deal with the constraints and milestones, because if there are external clients, your milestones will be rather, I mean, you might not able to change them a lot, but if they are internal client, how you can actually internally, if you are doing the project, how you can actually deal with them. So these things will impact your planning, the schedule. Project charter, it tells you what is the timeline that you are looking at, what are some of the milestones that you need to make sure that you have, how you are going to, what is your development approach, how you are going to determine the decomposition of the scheduling. This all information will come from the charter. Charter has a lot of information, but on a very high level, charter is something as like on a 30,000 feet, which do not change based on the project, on your daily activities. And it should not change whatever change in the product and project is coming. That is how high or summary it should be, but it could change if there is a major change in the product shift. Project management plan, project management plan as an input will provide you a scope baseline and other information like cost, risk, and communication. The schedule management process involves choosing strategic options to estimate how you are going to estimate, something we have talked yesterday. Schedule the project, like what is the methodology, What are the tools that you are going to use? What is your estimating approach that you will be using, the formats and the software. In addition to external constraints, we need to look for internal constraints, the project environment, the availability of the human resources, and then most importantly, the skill set. The another important item that would impact your schedule is your lead time, and maybe there are some other bottlenecks. The data analysis techniques are, we need to make decisions what approach we are going to use. We will be looking for duration compression techniques, modeling techniques, analytical techniques, or the software that could help us. An appropriate balance between the level of detail. I told you about the analysis paralysis is a problem. Too much details or too less detail. Both are not good for the project. You need to come up with what is the exact kind of a level that you need to have so that the project can move. The scheduling management plan is part of the comprehensive project management plan, and it defines the following. The schedule management plan, that the output that you are looking at, it has a model for the schedule development, which means the methodology, how you are going to create the schedule, and the tools that will be used for the scheduling management. Again, release and iteration length. It could be an agile project. So how you are going to release, what would be the iteration length? In this book, it is called an adaptive method. What would be your iteration segments? How it is a 2 week cycle, it's a 4 week cycle. What will be the time boxed activities that you would do within one iteration? 15 minutes in sessions in the morning, or maybe you have a bigger team. Yes, Scrum is saying that you have to have a 15-minute session, but the Scrum is become challenging when you have a team which is bigger sizes of nine people. But if you have a bigger size, then very important item that we will look into all estimation is level of accuracy. How accurate is your schedule? What is your contingency for delays? What are the demand for accuracy of schedule? I mean, is it to 5%, 2%, 3%, 10%? I mean, this is the variance that you have accepted on the project, that this variance might come. Unit of measure, days, week, hours, any other thing that you may be used. Control thresholds, plus minus 10%. There is a variance, and then there is a threshold. Threshold means absolute, we cannot break them. Predefined ranges of variances for tasks and milestones. Rules for performance measurement. When are we going to come for performance measurement data collection? What is the earned value management that we are going to use? What are the reporting formats that we have? Any other process definitions, that what does sequencing means, how we are going to do the resource estimation, what are the duration estimation technique. All these will be part of the schedule management plan. This is a very comprehensive plan for you and for all of us, so that we can actually deliver the project, standardized project. All of us can know that our threshold is 10%. All of us know that we need to do the measurement into a unit of measure is weekly. All of us know that our contingency for delays are what are the processes that we have made, so that we all, if we are 5 or 6 project manager for our housing society, we all can follow the same guidelines. Any question? So the next process here is define activity. There is a difference between work breakdown structure and the activities. We have the work breakdown structure. We know what it is. We have defined it. It is now the work package level, which is the smallest component of the deliverable that we will be taking care of. Now we have taken the fun deliverable that we have is a room. So take an example of the room now. We need to define the activities. We need a mason. We need somebody who's going to do a civil work. We need somebody who's going to do maybe plumbing work, piping, wiring, because there is a washroom in the room. So plumbing is required. We need to do some of the HVAC work because there is a centralized AC, or even if it is not centralized AC, we need to work on it. Then we have to have a low current, also electrical work, because obviously we need wiring. Then we want somebody who will paint the room. Then we want somebody who will do the finishing, the electrical fixtures. Then we wanted to have carpeting. Then we would like to have some furniture in the room. So these are all the activities that we need to do to deliver a room. So here we will be identifying and documenting specific action to produce the project deliverable, the work package. Define activities and tasks, including project management activities and other supported activities is required. Activities may have tasks in here you should be looking activities and not the deliverable. Known and unknown events will affect the project. The schedule management plan, the scope baseline, the enterprise environmental factors, organizational process assets, all are going to impact our defined activities. Schedule management plan will tell me what we need to do. Scope baseline will tell me what is the work breakdown structure that this activity, once these activities are done, what is the work package that will be delivered. Enterprise environmental factor is very simple. It's a turf where you will be playing your game on. It is something you cannot change. It is your internal activity. It may be your external, because some of the activities are dependent on your licensing. Some of the activities are dependent on your consultant who is going to come from any other country. It is some of your activities may be dependent on the procurement procedure, and the procurement procedure is very long. So all these things are, this makes your turf, this makes your ground, this makes the situation where you will be playing your game. Now this is this is a planning that you are having on your project. Activity list we have already talked about. We are giving you some examples of the activities. We talked about the attributes like what is the scope of work. So paint means what is the color, sizing, how many gallons it is going to take, what kind of a brush do we may require, how much piping that required to do the electrical work, the size of the wires, the capacity of the wires, the chandelier, the electrical fixtures. We are now having the every single description as part of the attributes. Activity attributes need to be used to identify the person responsible for executing the work. So paint is by Mudassir. HVAC work is by Mr. Iqbal. The electrical work is by Hasib. I mean, all these things you will be looking at. So your attributes will define the paint. So geographical area, place where the work needs to be done, the project calendar, when it is going to start, when it is going to fix, type of level, like the level of efforts. I mean, this is again a small article that you could find on the a level of effort, discrete effort or apportioned effort on the website. Do look at that. It ensures that each activity is identified. It ensures that the team member knows what you are doing. Team member knows when he needs to come in. Team member knows that, okay, once he gets into the room, what is the predecessor activity that it should be done, and what is when he is done, what will come next. So this is all will happen as part of the activity attribute. Now we get into the sequencing. So from here, let us jump to the tools and techniques which are actually common for the remaining structure, remaining processes. Okay, scheduling. So this is now here we will be talking about the scheduling. Here we will be talking about the how the all these activities that we have found will be sequenced. The first and foremost, we have talked about it a little bit, but a little more information is, about a rolling wave plan, and it's part of the progressive elaboration. You know that in the beginning your requirements are weak. You cannot possibly plan, but sometime it has to be put into plan to start the work on the project. This does not mean you do not know or know or understand the scope, but it doesn't mean you don't know the schedule, deliverables, or cost estimate. It is just you do not exactly are going to do. The requirements are kind of vague. Along the course of the project, many things will change. At the start of the project, there is a lot of expectation, and there are a lot of aspects that you do not have an idea about. Decomposition may not be possible for a deliverables or a sub-component. The project team may usually waits until the deliverables or sub-components is agreed, so the details of work breakdown structure. Iterative scheduling, this is a rolling wave plan concept is used for the waterfall or a plan driven or a predictive method. The other approach, the way you are in agile, is iterative scheduling with a backlog. Yes, agile is thin on planning, but it does not mean that it does not plan. It does plan, but they plan when it is required. So iterative scheduling with backlog. Hello?
Yep,
Seems my,
I can hear you, Modesta.
yes, sorry, it seems like the computer is not behaving. Some technology glitch, no idea. Zoom just crashed. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Why it is not behaving? Okay. So coming back to the rolling wave plan, and we were talking about the iterative scheduling. So iterative scheduling with backlog actually is making sure that you are doing the planning when it is required. So if you have, oh, sorry, yes, now, if you have on a second sprint and you have a backlog or a user story that we need to deliver, like the login of a banking screen, we will plan just at this point. We don't plan it in the beginning that what does login in the banking scheme bank means. We just, once we take that user story or once we take that backlog, then we are going to plan it, because it doesn't require to plan it here. And maybe it is not selected for the second sprint, maybe it is required for the third sprint. Fine, we will then plan. That's it called iterative scheduling with a backlog. You are scheduling whenever it is required. This approach is often used to deliver incremental values to the customer. The benefit of this approach is it welcomes changes throughout the project development lifecycle, because we did not thought of it that think of it that how much time it is going to take, what are these the nitty-gritties that we need to get into it. Once we take that activity, once we take that user story, once we take that task, then we only plan. The idea is work can exist at various level of detailing depending where you are: the work package, the control package, and the planning package. You know every single item of excavation. You might have an idea how the foundations are going to look like, but who cares about the interior and the final structure at this point in time? By making it possible for productive activities to begin without waiting for every detail of the project to be determined in advance so what we are doing is we are actually making sure that what we know, we plan it, we do it. What we don't know, we'll take some time to figure out, and then getting into it, into the details of it. Okay. How many of you have ever seen the network diagram in Microsoft Primavera or Microsoft Project? Yes, anyone of you have ever seen
Yes, I do.
I have to.
okay. So this is a project that we would be taking as an example for this chapter, making sure that we cover everything. So if you go to the network diagram, this is how network diagram is. It is a precedence diagramic method or an activity on node, which is most commonly used for arranging the project work visually. This is a critical path method for constructing a project schedule. So every activity that we have, which is identified as a red color, this is a critical path activity, something that we cannot change. So so once we are using a precedence diagrammic method, we are using actually a box, a rectangle box, which defines that it is a node that we need to do, which is a migration of a DB schema. And then we talked about that there are some additional information that we will put on four corners of it that we go into the details. So at this point now, we would like to know that so we have identified some activities, which is paint, block work, windows and doors, plaster, piping, electrical piping, HVAC, wiring, some other civil work which is related to the electrical work, because this block work or the plastering is strictly a civil work that you need, civil work which is required for the electrical work, because maybe you will do some holes in the wall and then you need to work on it. Then the electrical equipments that we are using, or the finishing items that you could say, or fixtures, I mean rather best way. So then carpeting. So now the question is, can you do electrical fixturing before the block works?
No.
Hello? Can you
No.
do the carpeting before finishing the paint?
No.
Can you do wiring before finishing a block work?
No.
So the objective of a precedence diagrammic method is that we would like to create a network in which we will define what is finished to start, what is the relationship that we have between the activities, what activities we could do now, what activities we have to wait for the predecessor activity to be done, and that is what the precedence relationship is. PDM includes 4 types of dependencies or logical relationships called precedence relationship, which is finish to start. You cannot start the paint before doing the plastering. That is finish to start. That is your finish to start. You cannot start painting before your plaster is done. What is finish to finish? What is finish to finish?
Is that both tasks finish at the same time.
Which means we would like to have a wiring, the wiring and plastering to be rather the done finishing at the same time, so that the next activity that we could start is a painting. And so we don't need to worry about, or because plastering may be doing somebody else and wiring may be done by the electrical team. So they are doing the wiring and putting it available for the fixtures, and the person who is doing the plastering, they are making sure that all the holes and the cuts that the wiring team or the electrical team have made within a room, these are fixed. So this needs to be done together so that the painting can be started. What is in start to start relationship? What is a start to start relationship?
Both tasks start at the same time.
Both start at the same time. Now there is one very unique relationship which is called start to finish. It is a relationship which is very unusual, and at least I have not seen it that whenever we create a schedule, and I have created many schedules. It requires that the task A to start so that the task B may finish. It requires a task A to start so that a task B can finish. I'm not going into the details of it right now, and I'm leaving it on you people to give me the example for this one specific one, which is called start to finish. Activity B must start so that an activity A can finish. Two activities can have two logical relationship at the same time. For example, start to start and finish to finish. Multiple relationships between the tasks are not recommended. So a decision has to be made that what kind of a relationship will have an highest impact that you should continue. Closed loops like this are not welcome, and they will not work properly when it comes to the changing of the project. So it doesn't work on the logical relationship. Keep it open, keep it one. Now, this is the thing that you have finished to start. We talked about the electrical work and the plastering, because this is our precedence. This is the relationship that we would like to have. But then now we have our dependencies on our project. So Kashif, what are the mandatory dependencies? What does mandatory dependencies mean? Kashif.
The mandatory dependency is between the two activities. There's a definite sequence A to B. So without one finishing, the other one can't start. The resources are the same. One task cannot start without the other.
So we have taken the example of the room construction. Can you tell me what are the mandatory dependency?
So in order to lay the carpet, you would have to paint the room first to be able to complete that room. So there's a mandatory dependency of the two activities.
Okay. Thermila, what do you call about the discretionary or a subjective dependency? Thermila, you are out there. You are on mute if you are trying to speak.
Yeah, probably I'm just making a guess. If the first one was mandatory, I guess this one is not as required. It's not. It doesn't need to be in a sequential order.
I mean, this is a dependency. So yes, to large extent, it needs to be a sequential. But again, take an example from the room construction, the 10, 12 tasks that I have identified. Which of those is subjective or preferential or soft logic? Which one of those that you would consider discretionary? Yes. So let me put this question to Hasib.
Like for the room construction, like plumber work, you can say um, mm,
Something which
but
is subjective. Something which
subject.
is, I will go into the details. I'm just
So yeah, subject like you can say plumber or electrician work, both are subjective to each other.
There is no dependency. Why do
yeah,
you
no
want to create
dependency.
dependency? So we need something which has a preference dependency. Some dependencies there, like Kashif has said, that paint and a carpet, there is a dependency. He put it like on a mandatory one. So what will be the subjective one?
Mm,
Jasmine.
Well, you don't have to wait to install your toilet for your carpet to be laid down. So if you're tasking, just a really generic. So your plumbing fixtures are going to be installed. They don't have to necessarily wait for the carpet in the next room to be installed. But if you're scheduled, you build it that your plumbing finishes is later on.
Why I would not create any relationship between that plumbing and the carpeting.
There's none, so it's very
Different,
subjective.
they are completely two different tasks. It has no dependency. So
It doesn't have to be.
yes, go ahead.
It doesn't have to be, but if your schedule is built that your plumber is doing all of his plumbing at certain point in your based on his deliveries or something, then they're not related, but they will be happening in sequence. That's what I'm bringing up.
Fair enough. Okay.
Add to that, Mudassir, would like if we're painting a room and if we're doing west wall and east wall, there's a preference between, you know, one wall before the other. He can start wherever, but it's still dependency because it's the one resource doing the two walls. So there's a dependency on the resource there, but he can choose which activity to do first. But it has to be in sequence. He can't do both walls. If there's only one resource, if there's a constraint of one resource and he has to do both activities, they're dependent on each other because that resource has to do that in sequence. But is that similar to what you're preferential?
I mean, to large extent, yes, we'll go. I'll answer. Yes, Roshan.
Just building on what Kash said, he was talking about same resource, multiple walls, but the same unit with multiple resources potentially, like a door, for example, painting and installation of the door knobs. You're working on the same piece of the area or same area, but potentially you could have that as a subjective dependency that you could work around when the knob installations or whatever happens versus the painting of the door or something.
I don't see Paul here. Has he left at any point?
No, I don't think he was there from the beginning.
No, I did. No, he came. I did see that, but I don't know. Let me put a message. Okay. So yes, you have, I mean, I would say 90% of clear understanding of what are the dependencies are, but let me put it in a little more clearer way is when we are talking about how you have done the relationship, what you people have talked, it is a little bit, I can see a shadow of a precedence relationship. Okay. I can see that you are mixing these two together, that I have to do this and I have to do that. One resource is busy here and that this resource needs to be used on the other one. The activity is dependent on the procurement or somebody has to do it like this. So we need to come out of this scheduling dependencies that we are going to create. Okay, so when we talk about the mandatory dependency, it's like a physical limitation. You cannot build a building or a house before a foundation. You cannot do a paint before the plaster work is done. You cannot you cannot do the fixture before the electrical work is done. You cannot do the doors before the block work is done. Okay. So this is a physical limitation. You cannot change it. There is no way that you can change it. This is there. It has to be done like that. Floor 2 can be done after floor 1. Foundations has to be made to make sure no. Foundation has to be done so that you can start building the structure. This is a mandatory relationship. You cannot change it. This is how it has to be done. Then it comes to a discretionary relationship, something that is subjective, something that is better or a standard way of doing it. So it will limit it. So at the end of the day, you would like to maintain the subjective or a discretionary relationship, but again, it may be because of some requirements on the scheduling or maybe some project problem or challenges at some later stage, you opt to remove it. You are not bound to use it. For a mandatory dependency, you cannot ask paint person to come in to start painting before your plastering is done and it is being properly dried off. There is no way. I mean, your project is 10% late. Even then you have to maintain this dependency. There is no way you can remove this dependency. But what is subjective dependency? So the example that Kashif has given, it's a subjective dependency. Why? You can definitely do a carpeting before the paint, but what would happen? Yes, Kashif, what would happen if you do carpeting before the paint? Kashif, you are out there? What happened? Let's see. Kashif is dropped out. Oh. Okay, Jasmine, what will happen?
Well, you'll spend a ton of money cleaning your carpet because it's going to get paint all over.
Maybe, and then you have to do the risk mitigation, some plastic covering, making sure that the paint do not fall, and you need to make sure that the people who are putting these leather or everything on it, they actually be very, very careful. So that is a subjective relationship. That is the best practice. But tomorrow, if you are losing time, if you need to gain time, you could actually say, okay, fine, let's begin it together. You can break that relationship. That is what is called a subjective or a discretionary or preferential or a soft logic that you have. What happened to Kashif? Okay. Moving forward, you might have some external dependencies, like people are coming on that time to open the window, the housing society, or you need to launch, time to market is there. And there are some internal dependencies, like you wanted to create milestones to make sure that you are doing things in the right way. Mandatory is must have, discretionary is good to have, external you don't have a control, delivery, procurement, permits, licenses. Internal you would like to create as part of your project so that you can check it that yes, you are going into the right direction. We move forward. This is called activity diagrammic method or activity on node. This is another type of the network diagram that we have. This is another type of the network diagram that we have, which will be used. But here there is only in this ADM or AON, the challenge is that it is only first to it only contains one relationship, finish to start. It does to create any other relationships. We need to actually create some dummy activities. So this is your activity diagrammic method. So let us take our 10 minutes break here, and then we come back and begin the remaining tools and techniques that we have for the chapter of scheduling. So you can see leads and lags. These are used in all 6.3, 6.5, and 6.6. So these are the common activity tools and techniques that we will be using in the remaining processes. 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
Hello.
I
So all of you are here? Yes.
am.
So just Kashif, I believe you are also back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, network glitch or something.
No problem. So just to take another minute on the topic that we were discussing before the slide. Uh, so on this one, the example that actually Kashif you have given is more of a discretionary dependency than a mandatory dependency. Mandatory dependency is like you cannot do the painting where before finishing a plastic. You cannot construct a building before finishing the foundation. You cannot do the windows before having the structure ready. This is a mandatory relationship, something that you cannot actually break. It's a physical requirement to continue. Whereas the example that you have given, which is a discretionary, which is good to have, it is a best practice, it's a standard, it's a resource availability. But then again, if I do the carpeting before or at the same time of painting, nobody would gonna stop me, but my risk will become higher. I have to make sure that my carpet would be covered properly. Even then, it might lose some of its freshness, it might lose some of its color, and it can get destroyed during the paint or stuff. So yes, I would like to maintain that relationship as part of being the best practice. But if the project comes to a point where I need to, we will see in the later slides that I have to bring back some of the, I have to actually gain some time, I could do that. Nobody's gonna stop me. My risk gets higher.
Yeah, after I gave the example and my computer was restarting, I figured that's what it was more in line with mining, because it's increasing the risk, but you can still do the two activities. Yeah.
Enough. So moving to leads and lags. Anybody has any idea what is lead and what is lag? So question to, let me see who is little more tired than usual. Dushi, there is a question for you. You need to, I'm not sure if you people are well aware about the construction activities, but I think these are more, it's more relate common sense. You can relate it that how it is going to happen. Every other activity, if I take IT or healthcare or anything, that would be very, very common, unique to other people. So Dushi, my question is that you need to do a concrete pouring. Have you ever seen a concrete pouring, Dushi?
Yeah, kind of.
Yes, there's a truck which is standing in the night and they have multiple 5, 6 trucks and they are doing this pouring from the top. My question is that is a 5-day activity. Once you started creating the schedule, the start day of this activity comes on Tuesday. And I'm sure everybody of you might have an idea that once you are pouring the concrete, you cannot take the break. It has to be done in one go, and it has to be done in the night or, in a cold time. It cannot be also done in the day when the sun is way too much out or it's hot. So if it's a 5-day activity that you need to do, and once you create the schedule, it comes on Tuesday. What are your natural reaction to this schedule? What will you do? Yes, Dushi.
So you said start would be Tuesday and it have to go 5 days.
Yes, and the constraint is that you cannot stop in between. The concrete pouring has to be done in one go.
So can you move the schedule to like to start on a Monday?
How? How? You are on the right track, but how? So there are two options for you. Either you lead the activity, so you are standing on Tuesday. Either you lead the activity to Monday, or you lag the activity to next Monday. So the two activities are together, and now what you are trying to do is to make sense, as you have actually explained. So either you pull the activity back or you push the activity to the next window of 5 days. So it's a leading and it is a lagging. Lead is pull, lag is push. Lead is an example of a procurement time. A lead is a negative time that you need to start earlier. The project management team determines the dependencies that may require a lead or lag. Leads are used in limited circumstances to advance a successor. So this is a leading of an activity. You pull it back in a way that it was supposed to be done like this. This is how it is. This is how the subjective relationship is. But then we say, no, I need to do something. So either I lead it or I lag it. So lag means you are doing an activity, you are adding some days when something is not happening, or you want to put a delay in between. So take again an example. Once you are done with the plastering, you just cannot start painting from day two. It will take some time to dry. You need to water it. You need to wait it for dry. So you might want to add some lag into it. Make sense? Moving forward is a scheduling compression. Now we have talked about the lead and lag. Now what happens, and what happened is that we have created a schedule and our schedule is perfectly doing fine. It is very important to understand the scheduling compression, which is a fast tracking or a crashing, can only be done on the critical path activities. I kept the critical path activities at the end of the topic, so to cover it together. So fast tracking is a process which is actually, let me go to the next slide. I think this is the better one. So you have a normal structure. You have an activity A, activity B, and activity C. Fine, we are going great. But then suddenly what happened? We got delayed on our project. We got delayed on some of the activities that we were supposed to do. Now, what are our options? We have two options. One is called fast tracking, another is called crashing. Once we talk about the fast tracking, we do two activities which were supposed to be parallel, now which were supposed to be sequential, now parallel. Carpeting and paint, supposed to be sequential, but we have either be delayed on some of our activities, or our miles or deadline is coming together. So we break that relationship. We break that mandatory relationship or a domain, and we say, okay, let's do activities parallel. What will happen when you do a fast tracking? Your risk will go high. because you were supposed to do sequential, but now you are doing parallel. So your risk will go high. The other option to reduce the size of the project times duration is doing a crashing. Crashing is that we talked about the crashing about yesterday, that we have a wall. We were supposed to have one person, but we could put two people on it. We will gain some of the time. But again, you have to look for the balance in between adding the cost and getting the value out. Putting a third person will not give you any benefit, but it would definitely add a cost to your project. So once you are talking about fast tracking, it's a risk. And when you are talking about crashing, it is a cost that would go up. So taking a little, okay. So coming here. So these are helpful techniques in a situation where your project is going into a negative float. I will explain you the float, or activities which are on critical path. Scheduling compression does not need to be done on the activities which are not on critical path. At this point, just understand that the critical path are the activities which cannot be delayed at all. Because if it's an activity supposed to take 2 days, it has to be done in 2 days, because if you add a third day, the project will be delayed. Crashes only work on the critical path where additional resources can shorten the activity duration. If you have activities which you can add available resources at the same rate, you may go into the cost neutral. But definitely if you do a crashing and you don't, your additional resources are expensive, then you may have a problem. You should only crash on the critical part. It is no use to spend money to shorten the non-critical path activities at any time. This is the crashing that you are talking about, adding a cost to your project. The next is a fast track. Fast tracking result in rework, could result in rework, not necessary result in rework. It will definitely increase the risk because you are changing the relationship. Using leads in case of schedule compression increases the coordination effort, because you were supposed to finish the job and then hand over. But what you have done is you have actually not waited till the point and then started an activity earlier, which will definitely add the risk. Crashing will cause crashing, and fast tracking both will cause some of the fast tracking will add the risk and crashing will add the cost to your project. And again, but you need to understand that if you do a lot of crashing, it will not give you a result. But if you do a lot of fast tracking, again, it's speeding up things. Haste will not make things, haste makes the waste. So it's a risky to your project. Be careful whenever you are using the crashing and the fast tracking. But again, these are the tools in my hand. These are the tools in the hand of the project manager, and he could use this based on the requirement of the project. So if I have reached to a point where it is required, then it is required. I have to do the fast tracking. What can I do? I have to do the parallel of the activities which were not supposed to be parallel, or the best practice does not allow me to do it parallel. But fine, this is what I will do. The next topic is resource optimization. What is resource optimization? So I'm sure, where is the graph? So what is resource? So if I put Here the resources, Mudassir. You can see this small red graph. Now it means your resource is used more than it should be, which is more than 8 hours. So we could have two situations in it. We could have two situations in it. One is called resource leveling, another is called resource smoothing. So you put a resource, you get this situation. Now, once you are talking about the resource leveling, what happens that I am as a project, as a team member is required on activity A and activity B. I am required on activity A and activity B. So what are your chances? What could you do if you do a resource leveling? Resource leveling always add the timeline to your project. It will always add a timeline to your project because you cannot replace me in the activity B, and therefore you are forced to create a finish to start relationship so that when I am available, I can start an activity B after activity A. Resource leveling often cause the original critical path to change. It creates a leveling of the resources. The critical part through the project schedule will change. Resource leveling allow long work hours to complete the project because you are changing. It may put a burden on the team which might be working as an overtime or a weekend or evening working. In case of the resource smoothing, resources are delayed within their free and total float. So what we are looking here in the resource smoothing is more that I Mudassar Iqbal, this is a timeline that I'm supposed to work 8 hours a day. One day I'm doing 4 hours of work, other day I'm doing 8 hours of work, other day I'm doing 6 hours of work. You just try to smooth out my work that I can be working 8 hours or 7 hours on an average every day. But again, resource smoothing might not work. Why? I am supposed to require on activity A and activity B, and I am flying out. I am going on a vacation. You cannot actually do anything else. So take an example of the concrete pouring. It has to be done today. What will I do? It will definitely take more time. You cannot smooth out this activity. So resource leveling will always add a timeline to your project. Your critical path will be expanded, but resource smoothing, it will just try to avoid this heights spikes in my work, that one day I am too much busy, other day I'm not busy, next day I'm too much busy, next day I'm not busy, to just smooth out in a way that every day I just remain busy as 7 hours or 6 hours. But it may not happen. Some of your resources will still remain overburdened. Some of your resources remain over allocated. Resource smoothing may not optimize all resources, but resource leveling does. Again, on the project management terms and concept, there is a topic which covers although I am covering everything just to give you an additional reading to make sure that you don't miss it. So by now we have taught work breakdown, structure and activity. We have taught lead and lag. We have talked crashing, control account, work package, planning package, effort and duration. And then if we here, we talked about info project and portfolio. These are good reads. It will give you like a project and portfolio. So this is a resource leveling, a technique which starts and finishes, dates are done. This is how this is happening. This is a comparison that first you try to do a resource leveling and you try to arrange if you can get the timeline that what is you require, and then you do the resource smoothing. So resource leveling may impact your critical path. Resource smoothing will be performed after resource leveling. Resource level balance the resource demand. Resource smoothing make sure the resources are evenly allocated. So it's a good quick read. With regards to project, program, and portfolio, it defines what is the project, what is the project manager, what is a project management, program management, program manager, portfolio, what is the comparison in these three. So these reads are a very quick read, and it will add, some value to your understanding that how things are. So coming back to it, this is a resource leveling and resource smoothing. Now the important topic, critical path. Anybody has any idea what critical path is?
It's the, I guess, only path from the beginning to the end that is, well, the most important to follow in order to maintain your schedule.
So I leave you people for 2 minutes till I get my water and discuss what critical path is among each other.
Anybody else has an idea?
As he explained in his previous lectures, that no that activity which cannot be delayed.
Yeah, I think your definition, Jasmine, was correct in what I understood. It's the task that has the longest duration, and it's the most critical to the project timeline. So there's a lot of dependencies on that one path. And I think, yeah, the timeline based on that path is how you determine the most efficient timeline overall for the delivery.
That makes sense.
Yes, so what is critical path?
So
Yes.
I agreed with Jasmine in a way. I said that it's the task with the longest duration that you plan your timeline around to make the most efficient overall delivery timeline. So dependencies and everything are based on that one task. So it's the task with the most dependencies to it, the longest duration, and you plan your project schedule around that one task in terms of efficiency.
Okay, so critical path is a longest duration. That is, there is no way that you can deliver the project in less than that time. That is something that you require. This is something that you cannot miss. And it is at the same time that is called, yes, it is the longest duration, but it's the shortest possible period, because you cannot actually shorten it any further. it is to identify the minimum project duration that you need to you require to deliver the project. How much time I do need to project we as a project manager required to deliver the project. So we will identify multiple paths. We will see what are the activity durations, and then we will figure out if the critical path is important. Please understand, the activities on the critical path does not mean they are critical as a complex or critical as critical activities. They are critical from the point of view of the duration, that if you delays these activities, then your project will be delayed. If your project is delayed, it means additional cost, time, risk, penalty, whatever it may be. Okay. Delay in any of the critical path activity will cause the entire project to be delayed. The schedule network analysis technique, the network analysis that we have done, finish to start, finish to finish, start to start relationship, dependencies, that okay, mandatory dependencies, subjective dependency, leads, lags, we have done everything. Okay, this is the schedule network analysis that is. Now we are actually creating a critical path based on the network analysis. Very important, there are some things that you need to remember. Critical path activities always have a zero float. I will explain the float later. Zero float means you cannot delay the activity. Once you are talking about the critical path, you need to also look for the near critical path. Think of an activity A, B, C, D, which will take 15 days to deliver. And then there are activities which are A, F, G, H, which is going to take 9 days to deliver. Maybe what happens is that this activity gets delayed, then this become a critical path. In one project, you may have multiple critical paths, you may have multiple near critical paths. So the objective here is to find all those activities which cannot be delayed, whatever it may be. Critical path has to be done once you know the resources. Why? Because let's say there are two resources. I am the resource, I am a junior resource. There is a resource, Tharmila, she is a senior resource. Now, okay, now I will do a job in 5 days and she will do a job in 3 days. Obviously, she will charge more because she is a senior resource, but it will reduce the duration of an activity. I may charge less, I will do 5 days, but then there is a risk. So you need to know what kind of an activities what kind of a resources you may have. You realize that fine, okay, Mudassar is taking 2 more days, but it is not impacting my external milestone or my external dependencies of delivering a project, but I don't have money to continue with Thermina. But then we find out, okay, so this is one of the topic, and you said, okay, we will put Mudassir, so this activity will take 5 days. Then there is another activity which again gets this comparison, and you say, no, we have to do this activity in 3 days, although the cost is higher, but the risk is minimized. So you will put Thermila on that activity. So your critical path cannot be done until and unless you know what equipment you are going to use, what human resources that you are going to use. So it's a resource loaded structure. You need to know what are your resources that would do that job so that you can expect the timeline of the process. So take this example. Okay, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. First question, how many paths do we have on this project? How many paths do we have on this project?
ADHJ BEJ
BE,
J
how?
BE oh sorry BEHJ sorry BEHJ
And
BFJ BEFJ BEFJ
BFJ.
sorry BFJ
Then,
and CGIJ.
just what is the duration of every task? And I need answers from the people. So yes, what are the duration for every task? Every path. Yes.
14 for the first path. 2, 5. 16 second.
Yes.
And 9.
Hmm?
14 for the last.
Gushi, question.
And the last one's not 14, sorry. That's
Okay.
9, 21, 24.
Last one, 9. And this is 2.
Oh, that's I. Sorry, I was at I thought it was 12. All right.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Dushi. Roshan, Dushi, are you out there?
Yeah, a little sleepy, but yeah.
Yes. Just last 10-15 minutes. How much time you will take to deliver this project? These are all the activities on the project. How much time you will take to deliver this project? Cheating is not allowed. I need answer from Roshan and Dushi independently.
I'm thinking, I don't.
Yes, Roshan, how much time you will take to deliver the project?
I don't know. I think 9 weeks.
Fine. Dushi,
Oh, okay.
yes.
I'm not sure.
Just select one day. One timeline. Hasib, how much time you will take to deliver the project?
16 days. 16 weeks, sorry.
Sharmila, how much time you will take to deliver the project? Sharmila, how much time?
7 to 8 weeks.
Fair enough. Kashif, how much time you need to deliver the project?
I'd say 16 weeks.
Jasmine, how much time you will take to deliver the project?
16 weeks.
9 weeks. Yes, Hasib, Kashif, and Jasmine. Why 16? 9 weeks.
Because there is a one path, BEHJ, which is the longest duration. And it's calculated 16 days. That's why we need to.
But it is
Uh,
yes.
uh,
Go ahead.
so yeah, but there's option for the shortest duration, shortest possibility. If you are thinking about the shortest possibility, there's a 9. We have calculated 9 weeks as well. So
Yes, Kashif. 9 weeks. Why you selected 16?
Yeah, I was going based on the duration as well. So in terms of the activities and the activities planned, the longest duration is what you have working with. But obviously, if you want to go with the shortest timeline, it's the 9 weeks.
Jasmine, why you selected 16?
The longest duration, because your third path does not account for the 6 weeks of H. So you can't really go 9. You can't skip a task that long. So 16, longest duration.
Yes, Kashif Hasib, do you agree with the Jasmine explanation?
Yes, that's why I would have picked it as well.
Anybody else has any objection what Jasmine has actually said? Or anybody wants to counter him?
Sorry, can that be repeated again? Sorry, I just didn't catch that.
Yes, Jasmine, go ahead.
It's because your third path doesn't encounter or doesn't count in your H activity of 6 weeks. So you can't just ignore that task. So your longest duration is your second path from B, E, H, and J. So 16 weeks is your critical path.
So it is very simple. You cannot ignore any task. You have to do the task. So once you do B, E, H, J, it will take 16 weeks. So how could you deliver a project in 9 weeks? In 9 weeks, you can only deliver B, F, J. Yes, H, E, and E, F, like B, F, and J is a parallel to B, E, H, and J. But when you are done with the F, the J cannot start until you finish the H. So you have to wait. So the longest duration is the critical path of your project. You cannot skip any activity on the project. That is why we have multiple tasks, a multiple path, and we see which is the longest. Then we have 2 near critical paths, which is 14 and 14, CGIJ and ADHJ. We also discussed that B, E, H, and J, whatever may happen, we cannot delay. So the float is that how much you can delay the activity without delaying the project is 0 in BEHJ. But take an example of an F. If you take an example of an F, what is the float that you have on F? Anybody would like to answer? Just a guess. I have not explained you the float yet. But what is the float on F?
Few weeks.
Few weeks. So which means you can start F from the second week till this things come, which is technically a 14th week. In between, you can do activity F anytime and it will not delay your project. So that is called a float. How much time or duration you can delay the activity without delaying the project or the next activity that you have. So this is near critical path. Think of a near critical path. You start A, U, D. Now you know in A, D, H, and J, you cannot delay these activities because these are on critical path. So the 2 weeks of activity delay can be used on A or D. Let's say we took some liberty on activity A and we did it in 3 weeks. Now you have two critical paths on your project, because if activity D delayed for 1 week, your project will be delayed for 1 week. So with the passage of an execution, your critical paths may change, and you may suddenly get a new critical path, because critical path has nothing to do with the criticality or the complexity of the task that you are doing. It is about the duration. So if you took a liberty on activity A for 3 weeks instead of 1 week, you said, no, we don't want Kashif, we want Mudassir. Mudassir is fine. He is low resource, low cost. He started a work, and then there is some risk happened, because obviously he is doing this task for the first time. But you had the liberty, you took the liberty, you initially planned that it will take 2 weeks if we take Mudassir, because this activity is not on critical path and we can delay it for 2 weeks. I did the job, but then something bad happened, risk happened, which we were not thinking of, which we tried to mitigate, but the results were not as we planned. And you got activity A done in 3 weeks. Suddenly, you have a new critical path on your project, which means now activity D cannot be delayed at all. So this is how you look into the paths of your project. And if I remove all this and go to the next screen, this is how it is. You have an activity A, D, H, J, 16. You have a float of 2 here. Then B, F, and J, you have a float of 7. Then you have C, G, I, J, you have a float of 2. I have given you an example that this is your critical path. If you delay, you can do the activity delay for activity F for 7 weeks, and it will not impact your project. You can do C, G, I, and J anywhere, 2 weeks of delay. But it is not that you have 2 weeks here, 2 weeks here, and 2 weeks here. You delayed this activity 2 weeks here, you have a new critical path in your life, and you cannot delay C, J, and I any further. So this is a float within a path that you can use to optimize your resources. Take an example. J is a resource, you need Mudassir here. And this is also you need Mudassir here. You start from 1st of January, you finish 3rd of January, you start 4th of January, you finish 9th of January, you start 10th of January, you finish 11th of January. Now, what will Mudassir do? His next job for me is on 14th of January. Fine. You can say, okay, I will delay this activity for 2 days. So instead of starting on 10, I will start on 12, so that Mudassir will work for 5 consecutive days. Instead that we pull him from other project or from other task for 2 days, and then he goes back. And then when I go back, I got busy somewhere else. I couldn't able to come back on time. So this float is a tool in your hand that you can plan well. You found it that this activity is a riskier activity, and you have 2 resources. So you said, fine, I will take resource here, low cost resource here, because I have a time to actually, if any risk happen, then I can recover. So float, leads, lags, compressions, fast tracking, crashing, these are all tools in your hand that you would be using at different points. So I will, okay, so I will take 3 more slides and then we will close the day, because we have already talked about this subject, so it may not take that time. So we have Next topic is float and slack, a schedule flexibility, something you can play with the schedule. We have a total float which belongs to the project. You see 2 days, 2 weeks, you can share it anywhere. Activity A took 1 week, activity D took 1 week. Activity A took 2 weeks, activity D will not take anything. So it's a shareable float. The amount of the time an activity can be delayed without delaying the project end date or any milestone that you have. Fair enough? Then you have something which is called free float. The amount of time that activity can be delayed without delaying the early start of the successor. So yes, you have two activities in parallel. You have two activities in parallel and you could delay one of the activity without impacting the date of the successor activity. So this belong to individual activities. This belong to the project. Please, these are very important small pointers. The zero float is on the critical path. You saw you cannot delay anything. You may get to a negative float where your started, obviously you started a critical path with the zero float. You got delayed on activity H. Now what? You have a zero float in your negative float in your hand, because milestone the delivery of the project will not change. If you have a negative float in your hand, what are the tools that you could use? Yes, Hasib, you have a negative float in your hand. What are the tools that you could use to make sure that you can still deliver the project on time?
Resource optimization?
No.
Lead and lag.
Crashing or fast tracking.
Yeah, crashing. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is what you could put additional so that the schedule can be reduced, or you can say, okay, fine, activity J, we will start parallel, we will not wait. So this would happen. So take an example here. So this is the one, I will go back to that example. This is the diagram that you need to understand. So you have a forward pass and you have a backward pass. Forward pass tells you that you start from 1st of January and finishes on 16th of January. And the backward pass tells you, if I go back, so we do a forward pass starting everything on 1st of January. And then we say 1 day need, 1st of January finish, 2nd of January finish, 3rd of January finish. This is called early start. This is 1 day activity. This is a 4 day activity. Start on 2, finishes on 5th. So once we were doing a forward pass, we were filling this top row and doing the forward pass. Now we know the end date. So now based on end date, we start doing the backward pass, 16 to 14. So this activity needs to be finished on 13. Once we were doing the forward pass, it was finishing on 11, and we have 2 days or 2 weeks of time in our hand. We said, fine, let's see how much we can delay. So we said, okay, 14, it will do 13. So what we could do, instead of starting the activity C on day 1 on 1st of Jan, we can start on 3rd of Jan, but then again you will have a critical path here. Or you could say, so now you know you have 2 days of float available on every activity, but this is a shareable float. It does not mean that you use a float here and then you are expecting to use here. You can imagine you put a C 2 days float, which could means 2 things. Number 1, instead of 3 days, you took 4 days to deliver, or instead of starting from 1, You said let's start on 3rd. So you start on 3rd. Now you cannot delay any activity here because you have already reduced the timeline. Is it making any sense? The backward pass and the forward pass.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so forward pass gives you the earliest possible activity that can be used. So critical path is zero float, is as implemented in the precedence diagrammic method. Sequencing critical path may have a positive zero or a negative float. Positive float is caused by the backward pass calculated by schedule constraints. Negative float is caused by the constraint with the late date is violated. Late date is violated. So I was supposed to do, the late date is 13, but I did it on 14th. Late date is violated. This constraint is violated. So once this constraint is violated or this constraint is violated, we would have a negative float in our hand. So this is a critical path activity. I am leaving it for you so that you can do this critical path activity on your own, how this is done and not. The last topic is sometimes what happen is you need a resource who is supposed to fly in from other city, or there is a activity for which you have no idea or your understanding is very less, or you are doing a UAT testing, which is a user acceptance testing. You planned it for 5 days, but you want to keep it a buffer. Please understand, if you remember the estimating, we are not doing unplanned buffer and we are not irrationally padding our timeline. Oh, we do not know activity B, how much time it is going to take. Let's, instead of 2 days, let's put 5 days. No, we are not doing it. We are saying that based on my understanding right now, activity B will take 2 days. But I have a hunch and gut feeling that there is still a problem there. I still might not know all the details. So I put a buffer of 3 days. The critical chain method is a scheduling method that allows the team to put buffers on a project schedule to account for the limited resources or a project uncertainties. I am not available. I am somewhere else. I am supposed to join back. I want to come from the other city. This will unnecessarily put a delay or a problem at that time. To avoid it, I put it in the beginning that we will be bringing Mudassir from another city. He was supposed to be here on Monday, but it could be a challenge. He said, based on our communication, he said this activity will take 2 days. But you know, and I am sure you have seen it in your professional life, then once you touch something, then it opens. And I am one of those, I call it unlucky people, that if you give me a task, a very small task of 4 days, and if I touch it, it will become 2 months. Because I have that stupid thing that I start digging that what is the actual root cause for this problem. And once I start digging, I find other problems which were under the sand. People have covered it over the period of time. and they have not done it. I can give you an example just before closing the session. They asked me, I was doing a consulting I'm doing a consulting for a logistic company. They asked me that there are 4,000 during a pandemic, people were not using these, not following the SOPs. Okay. So they were at home, they receive a call, they get to the client, deliver a job. Some of them got COVID, so they took the material with them at the home and then self quarantine and whatever happens. Internet was not working, everything happened. So they called me up and they said that we have a problem of 4,000 orders which we believe are missed, but the team has delivered. I said, fine, let me do the analysis that where are those. So these are called the backlogs, and they were not able to find the backlogs. So they said, fine, okay, this is March, April and May, 4,000 orders are missing. I started the job, looking into the details. Okay, there are multiple states, where is this, so that I can get to that person and stuff like that. Believe me, I touched it and I had to go till September 2019 to figure out there are additional 18,000 orders which the team has delivered or completed the job, but the company that I'm working for, they did not bill to the client. And this activity took me 2 months, from 4,000 to 18,000. I just asked, I said, okay, if this is the problem in here, let's see for the month of February. Oh, there are other orders with the same problem. January. Okay, if something was supposed to be delivered in January, it is supposed to be ordered in December. I get to the December, then I had to start from September 2019 till August, till July 2020, we found 18,000 orders, which this company, logistic company, did not bill to the client and they were delivered. And client was happy because they were not billed. So I have that kind of luck on my side. Then I touch something and the whole building falls like it was made by the mud. So this is where the critical chain method helps you identifying what you could do and what you could not do. It works on theory of constraint. It focuses on resource availability and dealing of uncertainties and changes. So this buffer, a contingency reserves, and the total float is not same. This buffer, or this is also called a contingency reserve, is not equal to the padding that you set 2 to 5 days. No, this is also not equal to the float that you can delay this activity for 5 days. No, I have asked to put a buffer activity of 5 days in between. It's an activity, you can say this is an activity FB1. This is an activity FB2, like activity G, activity C, activity D, and activity E. So this is where we conclude our discussion for today. I know I have taken a lot of time, 10 minutes more than my schedule. Hope some of you are not sleeping on other side. Any question? Anything that you would like me to explain? I will take that question for tomorrow.
Sounds like a plan. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please read through, ask me questions, post it wherever, message. I am available to answer. Thank you.
Thanks, Mudassir.
Thanks.
Thank you.